Welcome to Dr. Roger and Friends, the bright side of longevity, hosted by three Ps in a podcast, Doc Roger, Teresa, and Danielle. Thanks for joining us for coffee and conversation. Welcome back. We originally recorded this series, I Get By With a Little Help from My Friends, early last year. We opted to hold the episodes because of COVID. We assumed the pandemic would end in a few months. When it didn't, we went back and recorded a third part, Social Connection During a Time of COVID. We hope you enjoy this three-part series. We hope you find it informative and helpful at any stage of life. Thanks for joining us.
I'm lonely, yet not everybody will do. I don't know why some people fill the gaps and others emphasize my loneliness. Hello and welcome to A Little Help from My Friends, how loneliness impacts our health and creative approaches to combat it. You know, in episode 9, we talked about social connection in general and its incredible impact on our health and our longevity. And today we tackle a related topic, and that is the epidemic that is loneliness. You know, Anais Nin is quoted as saying, "I'm lonely, yet not everybody will do. I don't know why some people fill the gaps and others emphasize my loneliness." I think that's such a powerful quote, and loneliness is truly epidemic, and that's why it's such an important topic for us to tackle. And maybe first we should define it.
Yeah, definitely. And I really like that quote, how others, even having people around you, can emphasize loneliness. So there's a difference, we know, between being alone and loneliness. You know, there's loneliness and solitude, and then there's isolation. So most of us know you could feel completely alone when you're surrounded by a ton of people. You know, I lived in New York, and there were a lot of lonely people, even though there were thousands of people on the street every day, because being connected or feeling like you're connected to other people is feeling understood, feeling like you have a connection. So for me, loneliness is lacking that connection. And isolation can come from it, where you're self-isolating because you feel misunderstood, because there might be some anxiety. And then there's being alone in their solitude, which can be a very good thing. And I feel like we just need to find a balance, because you can go to the other extreme too, where, you know, you have people around all the time and you don't want to be left alone with your thoughts. And yet there needs to be time for self-reflection.
And I wonder about this. I wonder what's going on. It definitely is an epidemic. I mean, we're seeing it in all the data. And why? Why should it? Why is it? What's going on? I mean, we know we've evolved as people in our societies, so perhaps we have to start thinking about what is it about how we're evolving. We're mostly living in urban environments. We know that throughout the world, over 50% now. So as you say, Danielle, I mean, we're certainly surrounded with people, but what's going on? Well, you know, as I have always, it seems like every episode I'd allude to it in one way or another. We have lived a certain way for 99% of the times we have been on Earth, and we were together because we needed to be to survive. We needed to interact with each other in order to survive, and so this is in our very DNA, the need to do this. But you know, 250, 300 years ago, there was the industrial age hit, and this is when everyone moved from their villages and tribes and small towns into big cities. So that was a huge change for us, and we have to think that something happened there that is making us being lonely yet surrounded with people. Again, we interacted then because we had to, and because we were close, and because our living arrangements were such that no one lived alone. You were always just probably a few feet from people. So there's many things in our society that's happening. There's technology, and personally, it seems that the data seem to explode around the time that technology allowed us to interact, to connect, social media, and isn't that ironic? It's that doesn't mean there's even an association. It's just an observation that loneliness seems to be increasing as we have the means to connect with each other more than ever, at least virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's it. We're not doing it eye to eye the way we have for 99% of the time we've been on Earth. And that's why we're feeling that we're not connected. Don't know.
It's almost like people with social media and the pace of life, they start to compartmentalize their socialization. And I find it strange, like I'll get a text message or a long email from somebody about terrible things that are happening in their life. So I'll call them up or I'll email them and say, hey, want to get together and chat? You want to talk about this? Oh, no, I'm too busy. Maybe next month. Or they'll say something on social media about stuff that's going on, but all they want are little snippets, and then they go back to their life. So it's like they're compartmentalizing their social interaction and wondering why there's no meaningful connection. I don't know if anybody else here has noticed that.
Oh, I certainly have. We look at the brain, and the brain, I think we're going to talk about this. I think, Danielle, you're going to talk about this very soon. Well, one of you are. But now that we have brain scans, we know what's happening when someone is having a virtual versus a face-to-face contact with people. And it's remarkably different. We know about mirror neurons when we're with someone and they're experiencing an emotion, they're expressing pain. Those where their brain is firing, the observer, the one with them, their brain fires in the same place. It's called the mirror neurons. This is the kind of connection that I think we crave, need, want, and have had for most of the time we've been on Earth. And we're not getting it for one reason or another. Virtual isn't a substitute, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you nailed it. You can't have that positive resonance, we'll say in positive psychology, or mirror neurons by face-to-face interaction. And on social media, it's so easy when all you're seeing are words. You have no idea the person's expression behind it. You can't see their body language. It's funny to me how I'll read something and think it's funny, and somebody else will find it offensive, and yet somebody else will say, will have all these reasons like, I posted something and nobody liked it. They must be jealous of me. And I'm like, so they go to these absolute conclusions based on a little bit of text. And I feel like we've almost, by technology, warped our communication style in a way.
This is a tearjerker. I saw him sitting next to a guy on an airplane, and there's a woman between us, actually. We're in the aisle. And we're just chatting and everything. And she was a very, dynamic and very socially butterfly type of person, a lot of speaking. She was keeping the conversation going. And at one point she touched this guy's arm. And I noticed the guy started to tear up. And wow. She went to the loo, and I said, "You okay? Anything going on?" He said, "I got to tell you, no one's touched me for months."
Oh, wow! Can
you imagine? This is the guy. Like we're connected, but we don't have those things that do it for us, because this is the way it had always been for us. Touching, the eye contact, the real sense of empathy and connection. So, so what are the symptoms of this? I just gave you one. I mean, this guy just teared right up. He's a big, rough guy. I don't know what he did for work, but it was something very physical. He was a hulk of a guy, and wow, I was taken back.
So profound. It's defined as just a sadness due to lack of friends or company. To Danielle's point, it's, I think, more correctly defined as meaningful friends or company, people who understand us. And sometimes it's about being lonely for just one person. And for those who are grieving, it's often that one person you just can't have. It's a stigma, though, and research indicates that 1 in 2 of us feel lonely at times. And I would bet it's actually more than that. And yet there's this stigma about loneliness that we shouldn't feel it.
Yeah, like somehow it makes us less of a person if we say I'm lonely, like I'm unworthy of having friendships.
Right. Well, it's a feeling, right? Loneliness is a feeling, and feelings are caused by our thoughts. And so, and the beauty of what we think is that we can always choose our thoughts. It's that they're all 100% optional. So I think when we're feeling lonely, we can certainly be feeling lonely because of the thought, I'm a loner, no one understands me, or I'm not the kind of person who makes friends easily. Those can be thoughts that create easily feelings of loneliness.
Yeah.
And
there you go. All that negative self-talk. Yes, right. That's very destructive.
And those are identity thoughts. I'm a loner. I'm not the kind of person who makes friends easily. When we can just as easily choose a thought that's, I'm feeling lonely today. And if you're ready to take action, I'm feeling lonely today, and I can do something about that. I can get out. It's a very different thought that will create a very different feeling. So thoughts are optional.
Well, I think if we realize how dangerous this can be to our health, I mean, there's certainly the quality of life, and there's depression, and this just sort of a lack of a joie de vivre, a joy of life. But there's physical repercussions to loneliness and protracted loneliness. You know, the stress hormone goes up. Some people would say, why is that happening? Well, this is not a natural state for us. It's not a healthy state for us, and our body responds with the stress hormone, cortisol, and that has its effects that, we don't think quite as well. We're depressed. We're anxious. Our immune system is also affected negatively, so we can't fight off disease. And there's a higher incidence of heart disease, vascular disease like stroke. It's the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day for your life.
It's amazing.
Protracted loneliness or social isolation, if you take them together. And there are some cancers where there is data that shows that indeed they're more common in people who are depressed, who are isolated, who are not socially connected. So this is dangerous stuff. So we're going to give them some tips to try to stay connected. And if you need motivation to do that, I hope what we've said so far can do that. But even being physically unhealthy is one of them.
Yeah. And just as a reminder, this is a great reference back to the first episode we did on social connection, that one person can have 1 or 2 close friends and feel deeply connected. Somebody else might need 15 friends and to get together more often, whereas for somebody else, once a week is fine. So it doesn't even matter how much you connect. It's if you feel like you have a good support system and a good connection. So what's our action plan? This is so bad for us. 15 cigarettes a day. What can we do?
I think the first step is to really pay attention to the thoughts that we're thinking. 60,000 thoughts a day. And if we are feeling lonely, guaranteed we are thinking thoughts that are producing that feeling. And what's so important, I think, is uncovering our beliefs about ourselves. If our thoughts are, I'm a loner, no one understands me, I'm not the kind of person who makes friends easily, those are our beliefs about ourselves. And beliefs are simply thoughts that we think often. Beliefs are tricky because they can really fly under the radar, and yet they so dramatically can impact our health and our happiness. So starting to identify those thoughts, starting to realize the story that you're telling about yourself when it comes to your ability to make friends. If you truly believe I'm a loner, you will only find evidence of that in your life. You will only create more of that in your life. You can choose a slightly different thought. I feel lonely in this moment. Will produce a different identity for yourself. So de-identify yourself, your identity, with your thoughts about being lonely. You are not your thoughts. You feel lonely in this moment. You can think a different thought, and you can absolutely do something about it.
Yeah, start by downloading thoughts, and I would say take a social inventory. This kind of surprised me. Are you as connected as you think you are? You go and you take a PERMA score put out by the University of Penn, and you think you're doing stellar, and you're like, there are these little areas that I didn't realize that I could be more connected. And you don't even have to take an actual test and have somebody tell you. You can look at your life on a day-to-day basis for a course of a week. How many times today did I talk to somebody for more than 2 minutes? What were my interactions like? And just kind of analyze it. And at the end of the week, it's like, are you fulfilled? And if you are, great. And if you're not, what can you do about it?
We hope you'll join us for part 2 of this podcast, where we give you a number of creative approaches to combat loneliness.
You've been listening to Dr. Roger and Friends, The Bright Side of Longevity. If you like the show, please rate and review, and be sure to click to follow.